So you're thinking about homeschooling. Well, it looks like the whole world is thinking about homeschooling now.
That's right.
Well, stay tuned if you want to hear the 4 reasons why we decided to homeschool our kids.
Pre-pandemic.
Welcome back, everyone. I'm Mamia.
And I'm Emmanuel.
And we're Worth the Work. Our channel is everything about marriage, family, and parenting. Okay, and today we're going to get into why we homeschool our children. Now, like we said before in our previous videos, we have 4 children whom we've been homeschooling for the last 5 years. We're going into our 6th year of homeschooling now.
Wow, it's been that long, huh?
It's been almost 6 years, yes.
Yep, and we've been wanting to do this video for a while, but we thought obviously it'd be perfect time now that the whole world is thinking about either distance learning or homeschooling.
Yeah, exactly. Right. So let's talk a little bit about, let's take it back to 6 years ago when we were, introducing our first child into learning, formal learning anyway, when we were thinking about schooling.
Right.
It was about time for her to go to kindergarten. She was about 4 years old, and Emmanuel brought to me the issue of homeschooling, which my, I had no thought of homeschooling.
She wasn't down with it at all.
Not at all. I said, one day he actually brought me a pamphlet about homeschooling, and I told him to go ahead and keep that because that's not going to be for our family. But, with time,
slowly but surely.
Yeah, with time, as I got to learn more about homeschooling and just got exposed to more.
And a lot of prayer.
Yes, he must have been praying. He must have been praying because definitely, everything homeschool started to pop up in my world. And I don't know if we've ever told them that we're first generation. Well, I'm a first generation Ghanaian American.
And I was born in Ghana.
Actually born in Ghana.
Right. And so the unique thing about us and our journey is that, as Mommy would say, we don't often find a lot of homeschoolers that are like us, whether it's first generation or, African immigrants. And of course, so we had to chart sort of our own journey, our own path. Right. And, when we look around in our community, we didn't know anybody.
Right.
Not even a single person for me growing up, or even when we were looking around, anybody that homeschooled. So it was completely new to us.
Right.
And so we had to take a leap of faith as we sort of kind of made that decision to eventually go down this road. Before we dive into it, I know Mommy too, as the primary sort of teacher of the children, kind of share a little bit about, her hesitation in terms of even once we decided to take on this journey, in terms of not being formally trained as a teacher and some of those things that sort of made it sort of, again,
challenging, yes. And you like you said, I was not formally trained as a teacher. I am a nurse by profession. I never imagined that I was going to teach anyone. I didn't feel like that was my strong suit. So that was, one of the things I thought about, apart from the fact that, we don't know anybody who homeschools and it's just an unfamiliar world to us. I didn't feel confident that I'd be able to provide them a thorough education, a proper education. I would damage them and all of these things. And, there were going to be some sacrifices that were going to have to be made if we were going to do this thing, as far as maybe our work life would change a bit. Those were like the biggest hesitation, and it was just unfamiliar. Like in our community, there are just little to no homeschoolers. And when I say our community, I mean the first generation American community. It's just unheard of. We definitely got a lot of backlash from family.
You'll be surprised. Family and friends, what we've gotten in terms of questions, obviously, with folks who, again, are just not used to that concept.
Right. It's just a new concept for, our circles. That was not something heard of in our families.
Yeah, definitely.
What made you want us to homeschool?
So before we jump into our top 4 reasons, one thing we wanted to say is that now we by no means think that this is the best way or only way for everyone in terms of homeschooling your children, all right, educating your children. So we know that this is, for us, our way, the best way for us. And so we know there are plenty of other options, other choices. And so whatever works for every family obviously is what we advocate. Because we know it's definitely taking sacrifices and along the way. So
it's definitely not for everyone.
Yeah. And we know we've been fortunate to have been able to do it, especially when we think about financially and all the other implications. So I wanted to make sure we share that. So let's jump into it. So number one, our first or top reason is that we wanted to be the main or primary teachers or the influencers of our children. All right. So when we think about the ability to spend time with our children and instill in them the values as teachers and really come from educating them from a Christian worldview, a biblical worldview, we thought that was huge. We thought it was important in terms of being able to, in their education, in their learning, infuse what we believe into that education.
Right, exactly. I mean, when you think about it, how long children are away from their parent, 6 to 8 hours a day, that's a lot of outside influences that the children are getting. So for us, we thought that it would be best for us to be the primary influence for our children, as well as introduce them to biblical perspective on everything as it pertains to learning.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and when we thought about just the time, even when if we were to come home after school, a normal school day, we just think it would not be enough to really kind of teach them during these formative years as much as we thought was needed. So that was first and foremost our top reason.
Right. And that's what sparked our interest in it, or that's what even started to draw me in, because I was, definitely not open to it in the beginning. So that idea definitely is what drew me in. But as we got to learn more and more about homeschooling and got into the homeschool world, we got to see so many other benefits of homeschooling. So the second reason why we decided to homeschool is the freedom and the flexibility that there is with homeschooling. We create our own schedule. Now, in the beginning, when we had a 5-year-old, it was time for her to go to kindergarten, and we thought about, oh my goodness, she's going to have to wake up 6 o'clock in the morning to go to school to the cold bus stop carrying this heavy book bag. Just that whole idea just seemed crazy, even though that's what we did growing up. But, it seemed like it was normal, but it was just not acceptable for us.
Right. And we realized even though it's normal, that's the way of the world, it didn't have to be. If we had another choice, another option, why not take that road less traveled?
Exactly. So we have freedom, we have flexibility in our schedule. We can do school, 4 days a week. A lot of years we've done 4 days a week school, and maybe just for 3 to 4 hours a day is all we needed for it. And that's only when we had multiple children in school. But when we only had a kindergartner, we had an hour and a half school day and we were done. And so we loved that flexibility and not like having to have our kid in school for 6 hours of, time fillers.
Yeah, and you can change the schedule, obviously, whether today is not the day where we wanted to do work in the morning, move it to the afternoon. But again, that level of flexibility where you're not pigeonholed to a certain schedule. But again, what works for the family, perhaps in different seasons, different times, because Lord knows there's been changing seasons that we've had to adjust to fit our home needs as well as the children's needs. So that's been huge. All right. Number three, I think the third reason was that from all we've heard, and even obviously going through public schools ourselves, we just knew that for us, the public school system, because we knew we weren't going to afford private school. And so we knew the public school system for us was not going to be adequate. And so knowing that there was another option where we can take responsibility for our children's learning as opposed to maybe a system that we all know is broken from so many different angles, we knew that this would be the best way for us at this time.
Right. And I think in general, all the things we've heard of, we went to public school as students, but hearing it from the parent's perspective, the hours that they spent doing homework with their children after school, I'm like, we might as well just school them if we're going to come home and then we're going to do 3-4 hours of homework. So just thinking about just how that system works and the amount of students that are in one classroom and the lack of attention each child gets or, has to wait for another child to get it. If they're a little bit, they're a little bit more advanced than their fellow students, they'd have to wait for those things. Just all the complications that there are when you do attend, a regular school.
Yeah, definitely. I think not to mention the the social and behavioral implications in terms of other children. As we hear, obviously, how crazy it is in schools nowadays.
Right,
and so, all of those factors, we realize that if there's another option for us, we definitely wanted to be able to take advantage.
Absolutely. And, our intention was never to like shelter our children from these things, because we definitely know we can influence them in that way as well.
Right.
They have to be exposed to other people, other cultures, other ways of living, and we expect that. But especially in the early years, to be able to kind of control that.
Yeah, and slowly bring them in without throwing them in. All right. And so especially when we have an option. All right.
And so the fourth reason why we decided to homeschool is I'm looking down at some notes, excuse me. So we are able to tailor our children's learning. Each child is an individual. They have their own specific style of learning, their specific needs, and that is very hard to do in a school system where one teacher is there for several students. And
many students responsible for all their learning and progress.
Right. And we love that, that idea that we'd be able to focus on our children's weaknesses. We'd be able to develop the things that they were interested in. All of those things really, pulled us into homeschooling, especially as we got to know more about it, because we didn't know there was this flexibility. We thought homeschool children are just home all day, with their siblings and become weird and don't get exposed to anything in the world.
Like you probably think too.
Yeah, there are people who still think like that. No, but that is completely
your grandmother's a myth. That's your grandmother's homeschooling experience.
Exactly.
But not today.
And there are so many options. There's a plethora of options on how to homeschool your kid. If you want your kid to be at home most of the time for health reasons, or you want them to be out more and socialize with other kids, there is the flexibility to do that in homeschooling, that some of these opportunities that you cannot get when they are away for such a long period of time.
Yeah, so we definitely appreciate being able to tailor our children's learning accordingly. All right, now those are our top 4 reasons, and we want to bring you along to this year's homeschooling journey.
Yes.
Because there's been some changes, and obviously as more of you are either deciding to homeschool or doing distance learning, I think there's some obviously connection, and so we'll bring you along. So this is the first of many videos around homeschooling that we'll do, and we'll cover different topics. So if you want to know specifically anything about homeschooling, let us know. Drop us a comment.
Right.
But we're going to do some more videos, and we're looking forward to sharing with you sort of our previous experiences and even going forward. Particularly in this year.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, and also comment down below of anything specific that you would like to know about home education or homeschooling. And if we can help you with that, we'd love to address those issues. Now, we are not by any means the experts on homeschooling. We are still learning. And every year we've done things a little differently. But we would love to share with you some of the things that we've learned. And we'd also like to encourage you that if you're thinking about homeschooling, if you have any reservations about homeschooling, you can do it.
Absolutely.
I mean, full-time, stay-at-home mom, it is possible for anybody to homeschool if they desire to do that. Stay tuned, hit that notification bell.
Make sure you subscribe for sure.
Subscribe to our channel if you want to hear more about this topic and also topics related to marriage, family, and parenting.
All right. Thanks for joining us today, and we'll catch you next time. Peace.